Hello everyone, I'm Bable Jonathan. Welcome to this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital. Dwelling our top stories, Mancho BBC detainee of the Anglophone crisis is yet to know his fate to be decided by the military court in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. The hearing of the case is ongoing and might pull late into the night. In the meantime, 6 other detainees of the Anglophone crisis have been slammed jail terms running from 11 to 13 years with fines added to it. And of course, in this newscast we'll be showing you the deserted face of Menji, a locality in the Libialem division, southwest region of the country. It speaks volumes of the worsening situation in the 2 Anglophone regions of the country as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned. Those were top stories. The fate of Mancho BBC, one of the prominent detainees of the Anglophone crisis, detained at the Kondengi maximum security prison in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, is yet to be known. The hearing of his case is going on right now at the military court in Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé, and the case, according to information streaming in from Yaoundé, might pull on late into the night. And of course, earlier 6 other detainees of the Anglophone crisis were slammed jail terms running from 11 to 13 years in prison, including Lobe Jacob, who has been slammed 11 years in prison, and Numfor Gottlof 12 years, Bayin Nkene 12 years, Tayo Levite 12 years, Wiba Bruno 12 years, and Nuforan Nkene 12 years. The case of Mancho BBC is going on right now, and those who have already been sentenced have been equally fined up to 893,280 francs CFA, and individually have to pay 148,280 francs CFA as damage to the court. Failure to do so, they will each get additional 9 months in jail. This information streaming in right away from the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, concerning the hearing of detainees of the Anglophone crisis. Earlier, the president of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, Barrister Agbo Bala, when canvassing for international support for the detainees of the Anglophone crisis during a meeting that brought together civil society actors as well as human rights defenders from across the globe in Mauritania. He called for the human rights defenders to rise up and fight for the freedom of Mancho BBC and the others who have already been sentenced to 11 to 13 years of imprisonment with fines added to it. And he also called on the human rights defenders to speak out and hold the government of Cameroon responsible for the ongoing socio-political impasse in the 2 Anglophone regions of the country. Here's an extract of what he said.
But we're talking about the close to 1,000 human rights defenders from the English-speaking region who are still in detention. We are talking about the BBC Mancho, the Ben Perez, and Sikora. These are young men. Their only crime was that they stood for their people. They wanted a better life for the people. They were talking against marginalization, against oppression, against suppression, and in respect of the constitutional provisions, which talks about the fact that Cameroon is a bi-jural, a bicultural, and a bilingual country. That is their only crime. Some of them have been sentenced to 14 years, others 12, others 11, and some of them are facing the death penalty. As we speak today, 47 human rights defenders from the English-speaking part of the country were kidnapped because they were not extradited. The due process did not take place. Were kidnapped from Nigeria.
In the report coming up, we're going to show you the deserted face of Menji, the headquarters of the Libialem division in the southwest region of the country. And the situation of Menji speaks volumes of the deepening crisis rogging the 2 Anglophone regions of the country. Derek Jato was there and now reports.
Silence, wave and greet along the corridor into Menji, the divisional headquarters of the BLM division. There is no sign of life anywhere. And at the entrance into the city center, a picture of an area at war welcomes you. At the other side of this Menji River, an armored vehicle is stationed and combat ready. Another one trapped on the bridge, and no one is explaining anything to anybody. This is the picture of the Menji town, now an example of a forgotten world. The images captured are in itself full of memories. A mechanic garage, for instance, still had its work tools abandoned in the open, and vegetation colonizing what is suspected to have been a bike of a client that came in for repairs. Chairs and tables in drinking sport have been at the mercy of the weather. There is no one here. And what has taken their places in their houses are grasses growing freely on their doorsteps. This is the level of the Anglophone crisis now in Menji, the BLM division of the southwest region of Cameroon. We are at the Menji main market, the economic epicenter of the BLM division, but it is empty. There's no sign of life here. We have seen all the business premises closed. We have not even seen people to ask them why. But this place is as quiet as a graveyard. Even the installation of the new senior divisional officer for the BLM division, witness nobody came out. I am Derek Jato, signing out from Menji, chief town of the BLM division, for Equinox Television News.
That was Derek Jato presenting the situation in Menji, the BLM division in the southwest region of the country, a village that has been deserted by inhabitants, and the installation of the senior divisional officer of the BLM division, Tambokaya Ashu, took place recently at an empty ceremonial ground in a village that has been deserted by its inhabitants. Now, back here in the economic capital, Douala, we talk about at least 7 youths who have been arrested for smoking Indian hemp. They were arrested during an operation launched by forces of law and order here in the economic capital, Douala. Jikan Gabriel reports.
They are not land tenure or surveys official. They are security officers in the heart of Monthai Mangabel, a locality in the Douala 1 neighborhood. The quarter that has been well noted for the overconsumption of marijuana witnessed the surprise visit of security officials to put an order to the locality. For the quarterhead of the locality, there is another group of gang that came here today and began shooting as well as stabbing the inhabitants. It was a thorough search that looked more like a Hollywood movie as Commissioner Roger Mefire and Enes Ewuti, accompanied by Commissioner Kengfak of the 3rd District Police Station, go in search of the hoodlums. Though most of them managed to escape through little spaces, the police officers laid their hands on some of them. The surprise raid that was done at the Monthai Mangabel neighborhood was under the supervision of the regional delegate of National Security for Littoral Region, Raymond Esogo.
Sumanjik and Gabriel reporting. Now coming back to the Anglophone crisis, the main opposition political party in the Republic of Cameroon, the Social Democratic Front, has called for an end to the spiral of violence in the two Anglophone regions of the country. This is one of the resolutions of the last National Executive Committee meeting that took place in the Northwest Regional Capital, Bamenda, over the weekend, and the Social Democratic Front has blamed the Yaoundé administration for the escalating violence in the two English-speaking regions of the country. Greater details in this report. As the Anglophone crisis deepens into a terror and bloody twist, the main opposition political party in Cameroon, the Social Democratic Front, SDF, calls for an immediate end to the spiral of violence in the northwest and southwest regions. A release signed by the SDF National Chairman, John Frundi, states that the population is paying an unbearable price with their lives and properties, while the socio-economic stability of the two Anglophone regions is destroyed. The release issued at the end of the last National Executive Committee meeting of the SDF in Bamenda reminds President Paul Biya's regime that no government has ever won a war against its own people. The war referring to the implementation of military force against civilians. In the same vein, the SDF, in one of the resolutions of the last National Executive Committee meeting, decries what it calls collective punishment inflicted on the population of the northwest and southwest regions.
Exactly. They suffer what they suffer now.
John Frundi's party blames the escalation of the socio-political crisis on the Yaoundé administration, saying that it is the handiwork of the Biya regime. The ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM political party, is accused of allegedly taking advantage of the crisis to manipulate some Anglophone youths to destroy the SDF in the northwest and southwest regions. Another issue that attracted strong condemnation from the SDF is the systematic extortion of money from those arrested and detained. In the midst of all these, the SDF continues urging the Cameroon government to accept dialogue as the only way out of the crisis. Concerning the senatorial election, the Social Democratic Front condemns the withholding of electoral funding by government, the use of state funds and properties like vehicles by some CPDM high-ranking officials for their campaigns. We'll be discussing the trial and detention of detainees of the Anglophone crisis, and of course the crisis as a whole, with focus on resolutions of the National Executive Committee meeting of the Social Democratic Front. In the second part of this news with a guest, he is the organizing secretary of the Social Democratic Front, John Danley Kumazi. Meantime, we talk something else, the fight against urban disorder. Local authorities here in the city of Douala stepping up the fight against urban disorder. Today, the divisional officer of the Douala 1 subdivision, Jean-Marie Chakwi, and elements, notably the elements of the municipal police from the Douala City Council, were at the New Dedo market, and they chased away all the traders who were selling at unauthorized places, notably on the road running through the New Dedo market. They equally destroyed some makeshift stores that were along the road, extending beyond the expected or stipulated limit, and the fight against urban disorder continues in the city of Douala. Now here's an extract of one of the traders who reacted to the efforts of authorities in the fight against urban disorder in Douala.
Much disorder in this market, because as we are inside the market, you can see inside the hangar is empty, but people are there outside selling, which is not good. But all of them are selling outside there. But people are coming, they park their cars and buy outside there and go. They don't even know that there are so many people inside here. You can see the market is open. Let them leave the road and enter the market so that all of us will sell inside the market. It's too much. So they have right to block all those places because you cannot even have space to pass outside. Where somebody is supposed to pass, that's where they will stand there to sell. And then the vehicles, they can knock you outside there. And they don't want to say anything because the action that they have taken today is very nice. I want everybody to enter the market and pay place in the market as we are doing. There are so many shops, they are still empty. It seems to be, they are afraid to come and remove money and pay. If they come inside the market and make that effort, everybody will be fine inside the market. So there are many shops that they are still empty. People are outside there, they don't even make effort to come and pay, but they are outside there. While we are inside here paying and suffering, we are not even selling. But at the end of the day, we'll pay money inside the market. So we are not there to pay and then let the other come and sit outside and sell.
The Israeli ambassador to Cameroon has expressed the willingness of his country to assist the government of Cameroon in educating its citizens. Rangido was speaking during a visit to the University of Gaoundéré. Manjikan Gebrasmo.
Bienvenue, Shalom, welcome Your Excellency to the University of Gaoundéré.
It was under the Must Have program, which is a partnership initiated by the Israeli government to cooperate with states willing to share the Israeli know-how, that His Excellency Rangido, Israeli ambassador, alighted in the Gaoundéré University.
I wanted to come here myself and see with my eyes, my own eyes, the potential for further cooperation. We are not operating like other bigger embassies, like the biggest, like the United States, for example, or France or Germany.
While at the university, he had time to share some lectures with the students of the University of Gaoundéré. According to the state diplomat, his country doesn't go into partnership without them being assured of the outcome.
We create partnerships, and in order to create an effective partnership, we need to know that our local partner is as serious as us. In this case, we have absolutely no doubt that Gaoundéré University is as serious as us, and I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm very optimistic about the prospects for our continued cooperation.
His Excellency Rangido, apart from sharing lectures with the students and staff of the Gaoundéré University, also visited an engineering center where he saw the handwork of the students and lecturers of the university.
I visited UNIS, the Center of Excellence, and I'm sure there's a lot of potential for cooperation between the Israeli Embassy in Yaoundé and Gaoundéré University, and I'm looking forward to future projects that we can achieve together.
The rector of the university, who is also elated with the visit, also confirmed that her lecturers had traveled to Israel for an exchange of knowledge.
We've already had participation of lecturers of the University of Gaoundéré based on, a certain initiative from Israel, which he has encouraged us. We've sent some participants to a high-tech program which they did in December last year in Yaoundé, and we've already sent 2 of our professors to Israel on the Marshall program. And through that program, we're already at the verge of moving on with some research programs which would link largely the socio-economic development of the region.
Though not very prominent, Gaoundéré University will also be proud of elevating future Cameroonian engineers.
Out of Cameroon, we take a look at the fast-growing and outstanding tourism industry of South Africa. Special envoy to Cyril Ramaphosa's country visited Soweto, Johannesburg, and Cape Town. Mimi Mefo compiled this report.
Tourism is top on the list of the millions of people who visit the Rainbow Nation annually. In 2017, a report by the World Travel and Tourism Council stated that the tourism sector contributed 9.4% to the gross domestic product of South Africa. A majority of these tourist sites found in Johannesburg, Soweto and Cape Town tell the history of the South African population from the pre, during and post-colonial era. The Orlando residence of Nelson Mandela, for instance, is a crowd-pulling arena where thousands visit daily for sightseeing. International visitors have to pay 60 rands each to make a tour around the house, which is equivalent to 3,000 francs CFA. The Apartheid Museum, which is an embodiment of the history of the South African people, receives hundreds of people daily. Managers of the place admit that a majority of the visitors come from abroad, but cannot tell exactly how much they take home on a single day.
They came here to visit the museum. Mostly it's like we come from outside, international.
Okay. I caught up with a Cameroonian who visited Soweto for sightseeing. She does not only feel fulfilled, having seen in pictures and writings the struggle of South Africans during apartheid, she also recommends that it is pivotal for other African countries, and Cameroon in particular, to valorize their heroes.
I've seen how the South Africans honor Nelson Mandela, and it's amazing. Like, I wish that every African politician should at least get an example from him. Like, he truly is an icon, he truly is a hero, he truly is a father. So I think that it's really amazing. Like, children now don't really know the people who fought for our independence, or unless.
In Cape Town, where millions of international tourists visit annually, one of the preferred locations for sightseeing is the Robben Island, where the anti-apartheid icon Nelson Mandela spent close to 2 decades in an isolated detention center.
There were painful moments.
Behind me is the Robben Island. Can take about 30 minutes or less than an hour to get there. That is where Nelson Mandela, the iconic president of South Africa, was incarcerated for 18 good years. Behind me as well is the 55,000 capacity stadium here in Cape Town, one of the biggest stadia that South Africa actually has. It hosted some of the matches in the 2010 World Cup that was hosted by South Africa. This is a panoramic view of the Cape Town as well. Then the Table Mountain, some 1,060 kilometers above the sea level, which visitors use the cable car to get there.
Well, people come here because there's quite a lot as nature, and people can come and see how beautiful the area is, because it's a city within, it's a city with a table, with a mountain slap bang in the middle of it, and that's why people come, because of all the lovely scenery.
We wanted to get a good view of Table Mountain, and I've been talking to my son about Lion's Head and the lion's body, so he was excited to come and have a look.
Did you enjoy the place?
Beautiful, and the weather's been absolutely perfect for us.
South Africa's scenic beauty and tourist sites have made the country one of the best, world's fastest growing leisure and travel destinations. The sector supports 1 in every 12 jobs in the country. The government of South Africa has therefore set up the National Conventions Bureau and is also investing billions to help boost the sector at the national and international levels.
Thanks, Ebon Staff Lady Mimime, for ending the first segment of this edition of the news. Coming up next, Talking Point. Stay with us. Our guest in this edition of the news is John Danley Kumaze. He is the National Organizing Secretary of the main opposition political party in Cameroon, the Social Democratic Front. You're welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good evening, televiewers of Equinox Radio. Thank you.
Right. Today, 6 detainees of the Anglophone crisis were sentenced to 11 to 13 years in prison with fines added to the different jail terms. And Mancho BBC is still at the military court as we are speaking now, and his case is being heard. What's your reaction to all of this?
The party, the Social Democratic Front, has repeatedly held the Biya's regime responsible for this, the escalation of this crisis. The arrest and unlawful detention of Cameroonians, particularly Cameroonians from the northwest and southwest, including those that were sentenced today, their crime is what? Their crime is that they were able to stand up and question the marginalization of the English-speaking population in this country, and also which puts into question the destruction of the federal system that was initiated in 1961 in this country, and which Mr. Biya, his predecessor, President Amadou Ahidjo, decided to destroy in 1972. You remember, and if you were not yet there then, you will see from records that the Federal Constitution had a provision, sections 47 of the Federal Constitution said no amendment brought to the Federal House of Assembly which was to have any incidence on the structure of the Republic was going to be accepted. But in 1972, Amadou Ahidjo decided to organize a fake referendum changing the Federal Republic to the United Republic.
And that is probably...
This is, let me come, this is the reason why today the English-speaking population that questions this, because in 1984, President Paul Biya aggravated the situation by seceding from the United Republic. The law that he changed the name of the country from the United Republic to Republic of Cameroon, which is the name that the French-speaking part of the country gained independence through that name. If you, in 1984, in April, decided to remove the word United, and then you now call this country Republic of Cameroon, who seceded from the United Republic? Is Biya. And these people who were sentenced today are questioning this illegal and illegal process and marginalization of the English-speaking population. So their sentencing today is not a solution to the Anglophone crisis.
So to you, what the Judicial Department is doing as far as this is concerned is unacceptable. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you know, the military court that sentenced them today, were these people military people? These are civilians that were sentenced in a military court. And it is unacceptable because even the military court itself is not an independent court. They are receiving orders from the executive, I can say from President Biya and his Minister of Justice. So the sentencing of these people today is an insult to the independence of the judicial system in this country.
And your political party, like you earlier indicated in one of the resolutions of the last National Executive Committee meeting that took place in Bamenda, blamed the Biya regime for the problems that this country is going through today, notably the Anglophone crisis. Why are you blaming the Biya regime?
The Biya regime is solely and personally responsible for this crisis. We are blaming the Biya regime because when this crisis started with professional strikes, the lawyers were on strike. Instead of handling the situation as a revendication, they decided to arrest and detain the lawyers and the teachers. We are blaming the Biya regime for declaring a war against his own people and returning from a foreign trip. He was given a text which he read at the airport, declaring a war against his own people. You know, he once said that he was the best student of Mitterrand, and all he has learned from France is repression. In the 1950s and 60s, the freedom fighters, the Omniobes, the Wangis, the Moumes, were fighting for the independence of Cameroon. The French put a tag on them, calling them terrorists, maquisards. This is the same word President Biya is using today, and this is his lesson that he learned from the French, which he says that he is the best student of the French President Mitterrand.
And I guess that's why your party in one of the resolutions is reminding the Biya government that no government in the world has ever won a war against its own people.
Exactly. There are examples in the world. When you look at is it Colombia, that they fought a war for 50 years. They were not defeated. The people were not defeated. Southern Sudan, by our side here, they fought a war for 30 years. The government of Sudan never defeated them. So you cannot win a war against your own people, especially when the people are claiming their rightful rights. The Southern Cameroonians are claiming their legitimate right, the right to be recognized as Cameroonians and treated as such. This is why the Social Democratic Front has decided to put the blame squarely on the people, because the SDF has done everything to bring the Biya regime to the discussion table, on the dialogue table. The national chairman of the Social Democratic Front, Nijon Fundi, has written personally to Paul Biya 4 times, and the last letter was that which he presented to the delegates to the National Convention on the 24th of February 2018. And Biya has never reacted, he has never replied, neither to Nijon Fundi. He has never reacted even to call for the dialogue which all communities in the world, including the National Episcopal Council, all the Cameroonians of all walks of life have called on Biya to go to the dialogue table, and he has not been able to do so.
And with regards to the deepening crisis in the 2 English-speaking regions of the country, with confrontations between armed civilians on one hand and security and defense forces on the other hand, recorded at close intervals of time, particularly in the southwest region of the country, you indicated in the release signed by the national chairman that the country is in a civil war.
Exactly. The National Executive Committee examined in its totality what is going on in the country now. Mr. Biya accused the English-speaking population of the Northwest and Southwest to be terrorists. We are saying today that they are not terrorists. They are Cameroonians who are claiming their legitimate rights. And that is why the National Executive held the regime, I have already said it, responsible for these killings. We condemned the killings on both sides, whether they are the military men, forces of law and order, or the civilians. They are all Cameroonians. And that we called on the regime to put an end to these killings. We also condemn the extortion of funds from the civilian population, the killings that are going on, and the burning of villages. We condemned it, and we call on Biya to put an end to this.
Isn't it too hard describing the situation as civil war?
When you declare a war against what you call terrorists, and at the moment Cameroonians are killing each other. Does he want to say that those now that are killing the members of the armed forces, the members of the armed forces who are killing the civilians now, these are terrorists? We think that it is one country, the population of Cameroon, that has taken up arms, killing Cameroonians on both sides. And this is why we say that it has become a civil war. It's not more a group of terrorists coming from abroad who are killing Cameroonian soldiers. And when you find Cameroonian soldiers killing civilians, civilians killing the army, what do you term it to be? It's a civil war. And we are not only exaggerating. It is being seen on the field. You just showed a clip there in Libialum, in Manu, at the moment in Menji, Kwakwa, Batibo, Bello, Libialum. All that is not, they are not foreign soldiers who have come like terrorists to fight the members of the Cameroon army. They are Cameroonians now fighting Cameroonians. And when a population stands up against itself, it's a civil war. And the Social Democratic Front is calling for an immediate end to the spiral of violence in the two English-speaking regions. But at the same time, government has continued the implementation of military force on the ground. Do you see this really happening? It is happening, and this is why the Social Democratic Front has made it clear to Mr. Biya that no country, no army has ever won a war against its own people. Therefore, with history on the table, Mr. Biya should come to reasoning and put an end to this spiral of violence and call for dialogue. All right, before we go, you equally indicated or condemned the fact that government has been withholding some electoral funding that was supposed to be disbursed to political parties before the senatorial election, partly, and the other part after the senatorial election. Jonathan, this is a situation where a reasonable government, any government that reasons, organizing elections, particularly the senatorial elections, telling the world that campaign funds are available and that part of it is going to be paid during the campaigns and the rest after the campaigns, after the elections. And up to now, today that we are talking, the CPM regime, the government of Paul Biya has disbursed no 1 franc for the senatorial elections. This is the worst bad faith that a government can exhibit to his own people, and turns around and says that it's a government, it's a country of law. This is actually a country of lawlessness. Thank you very much, John Danley Kumazi, National Organizing Secretary of the Social Democratic Front, for accepting to be a guest in this edition of the news. Thank you very much. We are always at your disposal. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us in this edition of the 6 p.m. Primetime Newscast. Thanks. Goodbye.